6 Crazy Glitches in the Matrix. When I was in high school, I would ride my bicycle to and from school every day. Same route, same time, day in and day out. The streets were crap, potholes everywhere, and like most cities, the drivers were no better. Now yes, I was that cyclist Reddit hates. If I knew a light was going to go green, I start even it as was red. I'd weave in and out of cars during rush hour traffic and I didn't care what the traffic laws were. Now this day was different. If you've ever commuted by bike year-round, there's a sweet spot during the early spring where you're still wearing pants, or in my case shorts with thermals, and a light coat, but you will inevitably overheat. The temperature is weird and hard to gauge, so I threw on too heavy of a coat. I was at a stoplight on a busy intersection, on a windy day sweating like a pig. The wind was warm, like it was going to downpour at any moment. I am late for school, and I don't really have time to wait for the lights to turn green, so I am going to push my luck and run this red. Now pause. You've got to understand how this light works. There are 2 lanes in parallel, and both will have greens at the same time. There is cross traffic on the perpendicular lanes, but those lights go green after the left turn lights go red. I am sure you can picture the kind of intersection I am talking about. So I run the light just as it's turning red. I am good, right? There's no one turning left, the light for the intersection won't turn green for enough time. I can sprint right through. Perfect. As I am booking it, a silver pickup comes out of nowhere and nails me. Yes, I know, it was my fault 100%, I was young and reckless. If you've ever been in an accident, there's a moment when you are hit, your vision blurs, and your mind recedes into your head while your body goes through the uncontrolled motions. It's like falling. You know you're falling, but you're, for a moment, not lucid during the fall. Getting hit by a car is like that, only longer. So as I am getting hit, my vision blurs. I can hear the impact. I can feel the sudden change in direction. I can feel my jaw clench. I can remember everything from the brakes squealing, to the handlebars swiveling. My vision goes black. I feel my shoulder followed by my whole body crash off the front of this car onto the pavement. I laid there for a moment, and then my vision went black. I couldn't feel my body. It was like my brain left, and took the me with it. Next thing that happens is I am woken up abruptly by honking horns. I open my eyes, or come to, and I am at the intersection, before the red light. I am stopped having not ran the light. I see the car that had just hit me drive right by through the red light. I wasn't wearing the heavy jacket and instead had a light sweater on, causing my to be cold in place of overheated. Thinking I had just dreamed this whole thing up, I get to school and lock my bike, and only after getting off my bike did I realize my whole body ached. If you've ever been in an accident, or taken a bad fall, you know the kind of ache I mean. It's a whole body ache. You can feel it in your stomach. My left leg was hurt as well, giving me a slight limp. I couldn't believe it. My bicycle was also scraped up on the left side. I freaked out. I checked out the frame to see if it was warped from an impact, and it wasn't. I may have been alive, but man did I feel like I was hit by a truck. It was a couple of years ago. I was visiting my parents who still live in the same house that I grew up in. The day I came home, Mom told me that my old school bus driver had passed away the day before. I had been very fond of him and would often bump into him before I had moved out of that town, as he lived in the same neighborhood as ours. So when Mom told me about his passing away, it was a heart attack, she said, I was quite upset, and I distinctly remember every detail about the conversation I had with my mom about this. Later that evening, when I was out on a run, I noticed a little blue flyer by the park with his photograph and details of the funeral and a prayer meeting. A couple of days later, I was out buying groceries from the market, when I saw him standing outside a shop, looking very much alive. I was confused AF and wondered if he had a twin brother. Either way, I didn't stop to chat. Later at home, when I told my mom what happened, she looked really confused and said that she never told me he had died. I was naturally annoyed and tried to help her recall the conversation and told her about the flyer at the park. She asked me if I was okay, 'cause she was sure as hell that she did not say any such thing about his death. So I go out to walk by the park to see if the flyer is still there, and it wasn't. I was extremely confused by this point, but having no logical explanation to offer, I decided to dismiss it. Not for long though. A few days later, my holiday had come to an end and I returned back to the city where I work. Exactly a day later, I get a call from my mom saying that my bus driver had passed away that morning and that it had been a heart attack. I couldn't believe it and I figured my mom was a bit freaked out too, 'cause she sounded a bit shaky as well. Not knowing what else to say, I asked her to check if a blue flyer with details of his funeral and prayer meetings was up by the park. whenever she would step out for a walk. Later that evening, she confirmed there was a blue flyer with those details in his picture. Mom dismissed it as a coincidence and has never spoken about this incident again. Whenever I have tried to remind her, she says she doesn't remember all the details. But I know it's not true and that she does remember this. It's just so freaky and I get the chills every time that I think about this. I just haven't been able to explain what happened. I'm from Norway and I'm fortunate to travel a lot. And during my travels I've seen the same dad and son on 3 different occasions, in 3 different continents, in 3 different decades. And they looked exactly the same each time. So, the first time I saw them was in New York back in 1999. I took an escalator in a mall near Times Square. I was going down, they were going up. All 3 of us stared at each other until I reached the bottom and they the top. Fast forward to 2009. I'm in Rome with my family, and in a new mall, new escalator, I see them again. They look exactly the same, and I realize that I've seen them before. We do the same thing, stare until I reach the bottom and they the top. Fast forward again, this time to Dubai in 2019. I'm at the Dubai Mall and you guessed it. There they are. This time it looked like they recognized me too. They just stared at me different this time. Like, they didn't want me to see them. They both looked very serious and angry almost. This time I felt super uncomfortable because I immediately recognized them. And this is 20 years after I saw them the first time, which raises a few questions. First of all, why do I keep seeing them in the exact same situation? And why don't they age? Is it just a coincidence? Why always on the escalator? And why do they stare at me until I'm out of sight? The weird thing is that in the malls I've seen them and you usually walk around for a few hours, but I've never seen them anywhere else besides the escalator. Also, the son looked to be around 14 to 15. That's why it was so easy to see that they hadn't aged a bit. Kid was still 14 to 15 20 years later. I was 33 years old at the time and I was blessed to be able to buy my mom a house. I took all the proper steps and we contacted a realtor to show us some properties that we had seen in the newspaper. We finally set up our first outing with the realtor, but she could not show us any properties until a couple of days, and my mom and I decided to go see several houses ourselves that we had seen in the newspaper. We were excited and new at buying a home and we were being silly and should have waited. After about 2 or 3 houses we get to this particular house. Pretty house, small and just fit what my mom needed. We stopped because of the for sale sign, but also because it had a really pretty tree in the front yard. My mom asks me to stop and we call the number on the sign. No one answers and we proceed to walk to the gate. The entire time we are discussing how nice the lawn looks and how beautiful the flowers they had planted looked with the tree on the left side of the gate. It was a regular square gate with a regular gated door. The tree stood on the left side of the gate and some of the branches leaned over the gate. We go up to the door and we knock and a little old man opens the door. We inquire about the property and he tells us to come in and he tells us that he doesn't have a realtor because they are greedy and not showing his property correctly. I was nervous at this point because a buddy of mine had mentioned to stay away from properties that don't want to use realtors. So in my mind I knew I did not want the place for my mom, but my mom was chatting away with the little old man and I just sat and smiled. He then mentioned that the only bad thing about the property was the stump in the yard. That they had told him that in order to remove the stump the ground had to be broken or something and that it would cost a lot of money to fix it, and that is why he was selling the property for lower value than most of the houses on the block has sold for. My mom kept speaking and after about 10 minutes or so we finally decided to leave. When we walked outside the tree was no longer there. My mom didn't even notice at first, but I did immediately and I don't know how to explain it, but my brain froze for a second or two. I couldn't comprehend what I was seeing. The tree that was there not 10 minutes ago was gone. I didn't remember hearing any workers or chainsaws or anything of the sort. I was having a million thoughts a minute and in one of those thoughts my mom asks me, "Junior, where is the tree?" That snapped me out of my confusion and said I don't know and looked at her and she looked as confused as I was. The only thing there was a stump. I turned to the little old man and said, "Where is the tree?" He replied, "Oh no. I think you misunderstood me. I said there was a stump, not a tree." I literally has no idea what to say. My mom was teary-eyed at this point and I just grabbed her and walked back to our car and drove home. We spoke about it a little in the car back home and never mentioned it to anyone else again. Well, I know I haven't until today. Kinda felt good releasing that. I don't get them as much anymore, but I used to have random daydreams when I zone out or something, not ones that I was thinking up but ones that just kind of happened and sometime later they would end up happening. They would normally happen about 5 to 10 minutes after I daydreamed it. They weren't huge things that would stand out in the day, but they were just so close to what I had seen before that I would be a little weirded out. A couple examples. I zoned out in music class and saw the teacher talking to one specific kid while in front of the class, then suddenly looking at me and saying, "Are you alright, honey?" She did that in the exact tone, exact wording and same facial expression. I had zoned out during a class and saw my dad and I talking in the car. I had said, "Why would you need to do that?" And he cut me off and goes, exasperated, "Sigh, look, you don't understand." And when he picked me up, again, same tone, same words, even his sentence was punctuated the same. Maybe this one could be explained because it was a common thing for him to do, but everything was exactly as it had happened. He even cut me off at the exact point. I don't remember the context of when I saw it, but my friend and I were walking around the school and talking when she mentioned her friend had gone to Spain over vacation. I stopped and said, "Oh, my friend's dad is from Spain. She's been a few times." She says, "Oh, my friend is from Spain." And we kind of stood there for a moment thinking about how it's a coincidence. Again, she even made the same facial expressions when I had seen and leaned at the same angle. There are many other instances, but I don't remember all of them in much detail. I was talking about this with my brother once and he said it's happened to him in the same short snippets from an exchange that he would see before they happened. I was waiting in the car because my friend went to the store. I remember someone walking by with someone else beside them, possibly a couple, and they were chatting. I remember vividly what they were wearing and their body language. Since I didn't really have anything to do in the car, honestly looking at my surroundings was the only thing I could really do, in case you're wondering why I remember the scene so vividly. Anyways, after they entered the store, literally maybe 2 minutes later, I saw them walk by again. Odd, I thought to myself, but something felt off. They had the same body movements as before, and honestly it felt like I just pressed rewind on a video I just watched and watched it again. There was just no difference I could spot. They might have went to the store and left without me seeing, I thought to myself, or went through a different exit? Maybe went around the store? I was trying to find an explanation. There was only one entrance/exit, and we were parked basically next to the entrance. The really eerie thing was how seamless, smooth and quick it was. Not sure the right words to explain it. It was just like they went into the store, and before I could move to another thought, there they were again walking into the store, same body language and everything. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to press like and subscribe.